think that's 20 minutes, guys.
Coming up to it. My timer's about to go off. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Let's get this going, guys. Could I have the speaker order for the Gov team first, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first speaker for the Gov is Shrey Kudva. And the second is Anish Salamati.
Sorry. Okay.
Sorry, did you hear that? My bad.
Yeah, I got it. And for the op?
My name is Lauren Varnell. I will be speaking second for side negation, Campbell Hall EV, and my partner Alexander Ike will be speaking first.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to turn my camera off just to save bandwidth. But if you guys are ready, we should get going.
Yeah, I'm all good to go.
How do you all want POIs to be done? Is it okay if it's just verbal?
Yeah, that's all right.
That's all right with us too.
Awesome. So yeah, my name is Shrey. I'm going to be the first speaker. And if both judges and opponents are good, awesome. Yeah. My time may begin now. We affirm the resolution resolved. The United States federal government should require businesses to release information necessary for the repair of their products. Let's move into the framework so we better understand how this resolution is altogether. And let's start with some definitions. The main thing that we need to understand here is just what this resolution means and what the words of it are. So releasing information necessary for the repair of products in this unique case is going to mean establishing clear instructions for the repair of products for a wide variety of damage scenarios and the tools required and the steps required in order for us to fix it. Second, in terms of framework, is going to be our weighing mechanism. This is a policy round indicated by the word should in the resolution, meaning that the affirmative is proposing a policy and the negative is not going to be and telling us that we shouldn't. Therefore, on a utilitarian framework, the most amount of good for the most amount of people, you should be looking at which thing is going to do the best. If we prove that this policy is going to help more people than it harms, you should vote for the affirmative. With that, let's move into the third piece of framework, which is that of the plain text. Our plain text is the resolution that the United States federal government should require businesses to release information necessary for the repair of their products. The time frame of this is as soon as possible. The actor is the United States federal government, and funding is through normal ways and means. Are there any questions about that? Okay. If there are not, let's move into our sole advantage of bettering the system. Let's move to our uniqueness point 1, which is that technological companies are making it impossible for people and third-party services to actually repair their devices. Subpoint A under this is Apple. Apple is the largest company on earth by market cap, and its success is derived from selling high-end smartphones consistently month after month. At the peak of iPhone's business, it dates back to 2015 when they sold a staggering 231.5 million smartphones. There are a couple of reasons why this happens to begin with. First, Apple can sell so many new devices, and the reason why is because we continue to toss aside our old ones when a new model comes out. Typically, that's because the battery life of our old ones have become really bad, or the new advanced model lures us towards it and we move away from our current cell phone. Second, the company makes it notoriously difficult to replace their batteries by gluing them to other compartments, burying them beneath levels of complex sensitive parts. Instead, Apple incentivizes consumers to trade in or discard models that are literally 18 to 24 months old in exchange for newer ones. Third, advocacy groups say that it's by design that these companies like Apple are keeping supposedly neutral standard bodies from implementing environmentally friendly measures such that they can increase their devices' longevity and cut down the number of new units manufactured. Essentially, what we're seeing here is that Apple actually wants their models to degrade over time so that people are incentivized to actually buy new products and shift away from their old ones to ensure them a steady source of revenue. Let's move to our second uniqueness point, which is that of repair restrictions being bad. Subpoint A under this is the FTC. The FTC states that altogether, like the Federal Technology Communication System and the governmental branch of it, found that altogether there's little evidence that justifies the manufacturer's justification to restrict repair requirements. Companies are trying to argue against this by masking profit motives with other reasons. We can look to Microsoft, for example, that argued that design choices limited their device repairability, and such as using glue instead of screws to secure batteries and keep the screens in place. And they're driven by consumer preference, empirical research, and it shows that consumers actually care about the longevity of their device and the repairability of their devices. This is really critical because these companies are making it intentionally more difficult for the consumers to repair, so that if they do attempt to do anything, they end up just ruining their phone and they have to go buy a new one. Second is also that consumer technology manufacturers told the FTC that the handling of a device that contains sensitive personal data like a laptop over to an independent shop can create security risks. But they have failed to prove that in general, it's any better than giving a laptop or a technological device to the manufacturer in it itself. With that, let's move to another argument under this technology idea, and that being e-waste. There are two arguments under this. First is that with smartphones becoming harder to repair, as well as other forms of modern products, e-waste is becoming abundant as a result of companies forcing consumers to buy newer models as a result of the fact that it's harder for people to hold on to their older models. This is only perpetuated in the status quo as the new state of electronics is recycling laws a cover of limited scope products, including old and bulky old things altogether, like televisions and smart fridges. Practically, e-waste is just electronic waste, and in this case, we're piling up a lot of it because we tend to push new models to the front and we push old models to the back. Finally, in terms of technology, let's move to medical technology. If a product like a ventilator breaks, people have no way of affording a new one, these people tend to die. Manufacturers also restrict the repair of specialized equipment like these ventilators, which are a matter of life and death. Our third and final uniqueness argument is the gray area. There are two arguments under this. First is that when people purchase a product and they break it, they're not allowed to return it. And second, most people in America do not have the ability to just go out and buy another similar product of what they broke because they don't have the money to do so. So things like lamps and ripping a sweater actually hurt them a lot more. Let's move into the links or what happens when the plan passes. We can first see that companies will now be giving instruction manuals to ensure products can be repaired by third-party companies and the consumer. This is going to do a couple of things. First, it's going to stimulate the economy because it means third-party repair shops can begin to blossom, which will create more jobs and a more competitive market, driving prices down. Second, we can also see that it makes the devices more accessible and increases the longevity of these projects and products, which is important for low-income consumers because they can't go out and buy a new phone every single time it breaks. Not just phones, but products in general. It's going to save money for the average consumer. And also, in terms of medical technology, that can only be fixed with the means of certain products like ventilators. When those break, these people are devastated and they can potentially die, which means that if we fix these in a timely manner and we're able to help these people that are of low income status, it's much better. Third is reducing e-waste. By allowing for the repair of products to be more accessible means that people are less likely to throw away old phones, but releasing manuals can also mean that we can open recycling centers, which will allow for us to actually deconstruct this and not create a bunch of problems. The impacts are first that millions of products are broken every single year. And we can see that the state of America, there are 44 million people in poverty and 70 million people hovering below around and below the poverty line. So what we can actually see is that these people are harmed. E-waste, there's a lot more. And when it's exposed to heat, it damages the environment, leading to toxic water and also the air being worse. And in terms of medical equipment, you know that if it breaks, it's a matter of life and death. For all these reasons, we are very proud to affirm. Thank you.
Everyone ready? Okay,
Ready?
I'm Alexander Reich, the first speaker. He, him. I'm going to be doing neg case and then app case. My time will start now. We agree that it's a policy round and we agree with their definitions. However, clear instructions is not going to be enough to be able to fix the devices. You also have to be able, it also has to have the information of how these devices work. If you just say like unscrew here, unscrew there, you're going to have a lot of mistakes. And if you're bringing it into like someone whose job it would be, as they're claiming, as it would make like third-party repair places, they need to understand how to actually fix it and understand how the operating systems work. So it's not just like an instruction manual, but instead like understanding how the product works. Our contention 1 is business property. Our subpoint A is that it's unfair. So it's just about intellectual property, right? The way a product works and the way you would be able to repair it is is owned by the company that makes that product. These companies took years of time and a lot of money to be able to develop those products and deserve to be able to reap the benefits of being the ones that are able to fix them. And just generally, no matter what types of companies we're talking about, is they should be able to reap the benefits of their innovation, and it shouldn't just go out to anyone else. The 2 impacts are, first, that it's unfair, what I've been saying the whole time. Who else should reap the benefits of their innovation except for the company that actually innovated? But second is knockoffs. Again, this is so the way it impacts out to knockoffs is if you know how to fix any type of product, then you're going to be able to reverse engineer even what they were talking about, like the manual of how to fix it, to be able to create that own product, which means you're no longer going to be going to the primary producer. But so that's unfair. But second of all, knockoffs are always going to try to be cheaper than the actual product, which means they're going to be lowering prices, and they're going to be lowering prices typically by abusing and underpaying the workers that are going to be manufacturing this form. So it's not just affecting these companies, but also workers around the globe that are going to be negatively affected. Our subpoint B is small businesses. It has been assumed that what we are talking about right now is about Apple and other large technology companies. However, it is not just these large technology companies that are making new tech products or new products that include technology. This happens all the time everywhere. We see that technology is prevalent, as the background in the resolution states, in all sorts of kinds of products, which means when a small business creates a new product, they're often creating that with all kinds of small types of computers and whatnot within them. And this means, and these small businesses, being small businesses, are reliant on the fact that they are the ones that know how to repair this, that if it breaks, you bring it into them, and that's giving them extra money in order to stay afloat. Without that right, and with requiring these small businesses to release that information, these small businesses, or many of them, would no longer be able to support themselves, which means 2 things on the impact level. First is less small businesses, which means less economic growth, especially for the people that need it. We know economic growth is most important when it goes from the bottom up. It's the most impactful to people's day-to-day lives, and small businesses are most important in that measure. But second is monopolization. As these small businesses go under, it's only going to be the companies they're talking about, like Apple, that are able to stay afloat because they don't need the repair costs in order to stay a company. This is going to exacerbate the current issue of having big tech companies control most of the market, except now they're going to control even more. And again, it's going to be specifically bad for workers, because we know companies like Apple and other big companies are treating their workers badly. Our contention 2 is hacking and cyber warfare. So first, just some background. So cyber warfare, as the military commanders agree, is going to be the future of warfare. And right now, the U.S. is significantly underprepared when it comes to defending against spontaneous cyber attacks. But second of all, against being able to attack at a comparable level to our other rivals, such as Russia and China. Tensions throughout the world are rising. We see Ukraine, and we know that that's going to lead to further European conflict. We know that China and the U.S. are vying over economic global hegemonic power. We see an increase of cyber terrorism throughout the globe, and we also see that there are a lot of wars going on internally throughout the global south. The global south is less powerful countries. Anyway, the U.S. and European countries, which typically use the same brand, use U.S.-based companies to their citizens use mainly US-based companies, are going to be at a disadvantage, because now, by knowing how to fix these items, we know how they work. Enemies and nefarious actors will be able to enemies and nefarious actors will be able to target these possessions of the citizens and target the possessions of these big companies, meaning that when China or Russia or when cyber terrorists are trying to attack the US or our allies, they're going to be able to attack the citizens very easily, and that's going to cause the most internal damage. But it doesn't just affect us and our allies. For the wars going on in the global south, it's going to affect their citizens more, because as cyber warfare becomes more prevalent and more accessible, those wars are not going to be about just the warring factions, but instead attacking the citizens and the innocent lives of those warring factions. Anyway, on to AFCAs. Okay, so on their it's one big contention. On their first point about Apple, they talk about planned obsolescence, which to a certain extent is a thing that Apple keeps on putting out new phones, and they encourage everyone to buy them. However, first of all, this isn't as much of an issue of planned obsolescence as it is an issue of marketing. So there are really three responses. First of all, this can be applied throughout their case. First of all, this is about marketing. This isn't about planned obsolescence that's making people buy new phones. Like, I had an iPhone 5 for almost 7 years. Like you can keep their phones, they won't just break down. It's about marketing. Second of all, they give you in their subpoint about repair restrictions that companies like Microsoft are using glue instead of screws to in their phones to make it harder to repair. This being sent out, the instruction manuals on how to fix them, isn't going to make them change that practice. They're still going to put glue instead of screws because they know that's going to mean people are going to go to them to buy, which means they're not actually creating any solvency. Thirdly, they talk about e-waste. Again, you can apply what we said about it being a marketing problem. The reason everyone buys a new Apple phone every year isn't largely because of planned obsolescence, but instead largely because Apple puts a lot into marketing to make people think that they need to have the new phone. But secondly, about e-waste, we would say it's ridiculous to assume that the biggest problem in e-waste is new phones and not cables and just general electronic waste that we're now having to experience in the new technology area. Third, they talk about medicine, things like x-rays and ventilators are owned by the hospitals and should be fixed by the hospitals, and would be fixed by the hospitals, not the person using them. But second of all, if the person using them or an independent fixer is fixing them, that's probably going to be more dangerous, and we would rather support a trained professional being able to fix these products than just hoping someone gets lucky and ends up deathly damaging themselves. And then they say it's expensive to fix and talk about third-party repairs. Why would the third-party repairs be any cheaper? They want to make money just as much. Thank you.
Okay, so the order of my speech, I'll start with an overview, and then I'll go down the AF case, and then I'll go into the neg case. I'll do some impact weighing at the end if I have some time. But yeah. Is everyone good? Judges, opponents? Okay, I'll take that as a yes. Yeah, okay. So if everyone's ready, my time begins now. Let's start with an overview of this round and exactly what the affirmative does. Judges, our plan is really simple. We're saying that all these businesses that are focusing on modern products. So just to clarify, this doesn't just include smartphones. It includes smartphones, smart fridges, any form of modern technology ranging from consumer products like phones all the way to agricultural technology. We are saying that they need to release information necessary for the repair products. Our opponents like to make a big these repair manuals include. It's pretty simple, right? Repair manuals are going to include how to repair broken parts. It's not going to include how to create an iPhone. It will include, for example, if you break the screen, where are these screws to take out the screen and replace a new one? And I'll get into our case why that's going to be really important. Okay, with that, let's go to our first subpoint on Apple. They make three responses. The first response, which is probably the most important response that they make, is marketing. They try to tell you that all of these things about how Apple is forcing people to buy new phones, that's just convenient marketing. But we would say no, that isn't necessarily true, because you want to look to the evidence that we read you in our case. We specifically tell you that the main reason why people buy new iPhones every year is because A, their phones deliberately become slower. Apple makes it so that the battery erodes really quickly as new models come out, right? We tell you that Apple deliberately makes it hard to replace batteries. So because people's phones become really, really slow, that makes it gives them an incentive to buy new phones. But the second reason is specifically with companies like Apple, right? Usually the newer iPhones, if you break them, Apple charges like if you go to Apple to fix it because they don't tell you how you can fix it, they charge like $500, $600. So like at that point, they're just saying like, just buy a new phone. It's not worth it for you to repair it. It's not an idea of marketing. It's clearly, and like advocacy groups and research has shown that is Apple and all these big companies are deliberately making it hard because they want people to buy new devices. And this response is going to be really, really important, because if we can prove to you that these companies are deliberately making it so that people buy more of these products, then we're going to get access to all of our impacts. But let's go more down on our case. The second argument that they talk about is repair manuals and how like their companies are making it like notoriously difficult, and like Microsoft and Apple using glue, like repair manuals aren't going to fix for that. But that isn't true, right? Even if these companies use glue, the thing is now because they have to release repair manuals, they basically have to tell these companies like what adhesives they have to apply. We specifically tell you that Apple hides their batteries under like complex like and sensitive parts. They now have to tell what parts to remove. Instruction manuals are mainly going to include information on how to remove these screws or where parts are located. So that's probably not true. The third thing is they say that e-waste is a marketing problem. Again, I've already addressed this point. It's pretty clear that Apple is delivering this. Can't take it at the end of this, like at the end of this uniqueness point. It's pretty clear that Apple is deliberately making it hard for us to repair the phones because they want us to buy new ones. Yeah, I'll take your question.
So if we were able to figure out that Apple hides the batteries under a bunch of important information, do we not now, or important technology, do we not now know what to remove in order to reach the battery? Is that still like concealed non-public information?
Wait, sorry. Can you just repeat? Wait, what is your question?
Yeah, I guess that didn't make a lot of sense. But if we're able to figure out like that you have to remove a lot of sensitive stuff from the iPhone and that they're doing that on purpose, don't we now know what's important stuff you have to remove from the iPhone in order to access the battery?
No, like, okay, I understand what you're saying, right? It's like, first of all, even if we know like what parts are there, we know like the gist, right? The average consumer doesn't know, right? Like you can know there are sensitive parts, but there's not a like explicit restriction or like an instruction manual. So it's not going to be easy for you to repair. Like we don't know the full gist of it, and it's easier with the repair manual. Okay, let's move on to like the rest of our case, right? Go to our argument about repair restrictions being bad. They kind of just like concede all this argument and they just like talk about marketing and different things. Our argument is really simple here, right? We're telling you companies are masking profit motives by just saying it's the consumer's fault. But we read you arguments with Microsoft where we say empirical research has proven that consumers care about longevity and repairability. Microsoft and all these other companies, they are intentionally making it hard to repair devices. We also talk about e-waste, right? We specifically tell you e-waste is building up because these newer models are being like replaced with these like older models are being replaced with newer models, and that means people are throwing away iPhones. But the thing that they also miss, which Shrey talks about, is that recycling centers, because there aren't instruction manuals on how to dismantle these devices, the recycling centers literally can't process new iPhones. Like they don't know how to deconstruct them and reuse parts. So it's not only the consumer, but also by releasing instruction manuals, it actually makes it easier for us to recycle the devices in the first place. Let's go to our final argument on medical technology. They say that the hospital owns all these technologies. That's not true. Hospitals don't manufacture medical technology. It's biomedical companies, and they're just companies like Apple, right? So that's why it's so hard to get medical technology repaired, because even the hospital doesn't know how to repair it. And then if like there's no instruction manuals, it means that you have to now go to the biomedical company that created like the ventilator and sort things out with them. Our impacts are really simple, and we access them in a really clean way. We tell you the plan passes, it means consumers now have the right to repair. This leads to a couple of things. First, it's going to stimulate the economy. They can see the fact that third-party repair shops are going to pop up. Then they talk about how third-party repair shops are like going to like charge the same amount. That's not true. Apple is charging like $500 if I break the back glass on my phone. It probably doesn't cost $500 to replace a sheet of glass. What's going to happen in our world is that third parties are going to come, offer the repair for cheaper prices, and as a result, Apple is going to also lower the prices. It increases market competition. It's probably beneficial. But the second thing that we get access to makes devices more accessible. We tell you it's better for low-income people. Products are more accessible. You don't have to keep spending a bunch of money whenever your product breaks. And then third is e-waste. This is probably a really big impact. We specifically tell you it makes it easier for recycling centers to process devices, but also makes the buildup of e-waste less. Impacts are pretty big. We tell you millions of products are broken every year. We talk about how how e-waste is like releases toxic chemicals into the air, damaging the atmosphere, it's pretty clear we're winning our case. Let's go to their case. First, on the argument of business property, specifically, you want to look to the fact that there's already legislation that makes it illegal for manufacturers to not to make it impossible to go to third parties. This is the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act, which literally says that it is illegal for manufacturers to make it impossible for companies to go to off-brand to fix their devices, which means that in the status quo, they're kind of already in this gray area with violating the law. But let's go to their impacts about innovation. They say that their main point is about knockoffs, but this argument literally makes no sense. Just telling somebody what screws to remove, you're not telling them how to make the components of the device. The instruction manual isn't an instruction manual on how to create an iPhone. It's where the screws are that you have to remove to replace components. If you've ever been to a repair shop, judges, they don't create new screens. They don't make new CPUs. They buy the CPUs from the company and they just replace them. There's going to be no knockoffs from other countries. And then on this argument of small businesses don't rely on repair money. Also, what small businesses are creating technology that are restricting repair processes? They don't give you any examples. The third thing is the app creates small businesses through third-party repair shops. If we're talking about small businesses, the app is probably better. And then on intellectual property rights, they can still sue, so knockoffs aren't going to happen. Nothing changes in the status quo. Go to their second contention of hacking and cyber warfare. This contention is super overblown. First, you want to realize is these instruction manuals are talking about hardware, not software. The instruction manual isn't going to tell you how to hack into the iPhone and beat the encryption that Apple security has. It's going to tell you where the screws are and where the components are located. The US has also been ramping up cybersecurity. They give you no reason on why passing a bill about helping people fix damaged products is going to start a cyber warfare. Let's weigh this on probability. It's super improbable that telling repair shops and the average consumer how to repair an iPhone is going to lead to China and Russia being able to just hack into everyone's iPhone and causing a massive cyber warfare. On probability, you probably just shouldn't buy this argument. If you're looking at the impacts, you're probably going to either vote off of our small businesses impact, which comes from third-party repair shops, or B, you're going to be voting off our e-waste impact. It's a pretty simple round. I strongly urge an AF ballot. Thank you.
Okay. So my name is Lauren Varnell. I'll be speaking second on side negation for Campbell Hall EV. If everyone is ready, my 8 minutes. Oh, and also I'm just going to be starting off on the kind of AF plan and then going on to the AF case. My 8 minutes will start now. Let's look at the plan. They kind of read this overview at the top of their speech. They say, oh, we're not just talking about smartphones, we're talking about smart fridges, etc. I mean, this is fine. You don't really have to evaluate this. Smart fridges, it's not going to actually increase the impacts that they're talking about as much as they want you to think it will. But I'll get more onto that later. Their first contention largely resolves around tech companies making it impossible for repairs to be made. They read a couple of anecdotes about how Apple kind of just incentivizes people to toss aside old phones. My partner responds very explicitly here by saying that this is directly a marketing issue. He reads through responses. He reads that first, it's marketing planned because of planned obsolescence, and it's not necessarily inherent to not knowing which screws to take out of your phone. First, people are always going to want the new and shiny new product. They're always going to want to be buying the new products. It's a stigma thing. It's a society thing. People just want what's new, what's hot, and Apple markets really, really well. But second of all, and the more important response that he read here was about repair restrictions and instructions. They themselves bring up the example of how Microsoft and Apple not only hide their batteries under a lot of sensitive data, but also use glue that erodes the battery over time. This practice will not stop because they're going to have to start releasing their instruction manuals. They're going to continue to do this, and they probably will just actually make it even harder for these third-party repair shops that they're talking about to access the battery to repair these phones in the first place. Yes, they'll be releasing the repair manuals, but they'll just make it really difficult to repair if they care so much about people buying their new products. Also, just again on e-waste, and something I'm going to be getting onto later because that's later in their case, my partner read the response that goes dropped saying that like smartphones and smart fridges are not accounting, like it's probably not accounting for like the huge amount of e-waste that they're making it sound like. And I'll get more onto that later, but you can just flow through my partner's responses about how it's about marketing, it's not about planned obsolescence. They read a couple of responses saying that the main reason that phones become slower is because they want you to buy like a new phone, and that Apple charges a lot, like $500 to repair your phone, and at that point they're just like, okay, you might as well just buy a new phone. That's what marketing is. It's trying to get you to buy a new phone. You cannot buy this, and our responses just pass the gut check better than theirs do. Let's go on to the next link. They're talking about repair restrictions are bad, about like the whole glue thing with Microsoft, and they just come up here and to extend this to say, empirically, consumers have preferred to have a longer shelf life for their products. I mean, like, that's just super vague. It doesn't really mean anything or hold any water in the round. Like consumers wanting to have a longer shelf life for their products, like I'm sure everyone would like that, but it's not going to be improved by like getting the instruction manual for your phone. Then let's go into, because of the whole glue thing that I talked about earlier, the whole e-waste point, they're probably going to come up here in their final speech and try to impact this out a lot and increase the magnitude. But like you can just see, this is not a high magnitude impact in comparison to the impacts that I'll get onto later in our case. Do not let them come up here and pretend that it's like this huge thing that's going to potentially solve climate change or actually solve a lot, because also there's not a high probability that, because even if you buy that like smartphones account for a lot of e-waste, there's not a high probability that everyone's just going to stop throwing away their smartphones altogether, and that this is going to solve back for recycling centers that all of a sudden can't process the fact that smart fridges are being thrown away after use. This is not going to be like a huge solvency impact that they're pretending it is. Also, the responses that we read here on the specific links for like hospitals and like ventilators and things like that, the only thing that they say to this is like the hospital doesn't even know how to repair. The hospital doesn't even know how to repair, and that's like the main issue they have here. But like you can turn this when my partner says very explicitly, and this goes unresponded to, this turn where he tells you like, would you rather have like some nurse who does not know how to operate a ventilator and like repair the ventilator attempt to do so, instead of actually sourcing it out to the company that made it in order to solve and fix the issue, which is potentially harmful to the health in the long term or in the short term of the person who's on the ventilator. Do not let them blow this impact up. It's not like the huge impact that they're pretending it is. Let's go later on. That's pretty much their entire case. This whole third-party repair shops, which they're trying to cross-apply to our case on small businesses, when they say that, oh, it's just going to be competitive and it's going to cause Apple to like lower their prices. Apple is not going to do this. They're not going to care about the third-party repair shops. But second of all, it's not like these third-party repair shops popping up are not going to stimulate the economy in the way they want you to think it will. Do not let them, like the link here is like super thin. Don't let them blow this up. As you can see, and I'm going to do some more weighing later, the weighing is just super unequal here. If you do the impact calculus, our impacts are of higher magnitude, and some of them are of much higher probability. It's going to be a very, very clear neg ballot. But let's go on to our case. Our first contention is business property. We tell you very specifically on our first link that it's unfair to make people and companies that have been working on these projects for years sell their or release their not even sell it, release their intellectual property for free, and they should not be forced to disclose. They said the one response here was that it's illegal for manufacturers to make it illegal or like impossible for third-party tech companies to like repair the items. I'm not really sure how this is responsive to our case, because they're not technically like, they said, oh, well, they're almost making it illegal in the status quo, but it's not impossible. It's just very, very hard. And when this might become a bigger issue later in the round, but this whole issue on hardware versus software, it's just a couple screws. They're just telling you where the battery is. It's actually not the small thing they're making it sound like. The resolution itself talks about computer technology, software, and complex electromechanical systems. This is actually something very important. And also, like, people can work backwards. Talented cyber like technicians can work backwards using the like if you have where each piece, where each component is, where all the sensitive data is in a phone, where it's located on the like grid, it's able, like people are able to work backwards, and that's how like new technology is first not only created, knockoffs are created, and also cyber warfare and like hacking occurs. But then let's go on to the knockoffs. Our second impact there, we're talking about how that's very bad for workers, because they are like underpaying their workers in order to compete with these sellers. But on the small businesses point, and this is where they try to cross-apply the third-party repair shops, which are not going to be like the huge businesses that they are trying to make them sound like. There's not going to be a bunch of small business third-party repair shops all of a sudden popping up. But yeah, this is like less small businesses, less economic growth when small businesses, and this is then like the unique link that is not responded to, small businesses are also going to have to be releasing their own technology and their own information. And this is when monopolies are able to take this information as well. They say lawsuits still exist, but like what tiny corporation is going to win against Apple in either world? Let's go on to contention 2, hacking and cyber warfare. This is where we win the round. This is the highest magnitude impact. And even if you think the probability is like slightly lower than e-waste recycling factories, like being able to manage e-waste slightly better, you have to buy it because it is of the highest impact in this round. It is when China and the United States are like tensions are increasing and China is able to become the biggest hegemon. This is very, very bad.
Everyone ready? Okay, I'm just going to be doing voters of different kinds. My time will start now. Okay, first let's talk about small businesses. We think it's pretty weird to assume that the independent repair shop small business market, like You Break, I Fix, which first of all already exists and probably wouldn't expand that much because there are independent authorized repair shops, wouldn't really be a lot on the on an economic scale. And we tell you very specifically that since most, like not most technology, but most products now have some electronic technological aspect, and that means all the small businesses, almost all of these small businesses right now are creating stuff with these technological aspects, and they're right now also the only ones that are able to repair it. And since small businesses run on pretty slim margins, since they're startups, they don't have the same comfort like these big corporations do. So they need the right to be able to be the only one that fixes their products to stay afloat. And that is an extremely clear link that these small businesses will go under, that these small businesses will not operate as they were able to do. And that's going to mean the people who are running these small businesses are much less able to expand their wealth and able to break out cycles of poverty. The people working here aren't able to get the same jobs that they're going to get, and they're going to get worse jobs working at bigger corporations. And on every single level, we know that these small businesses, almost all of them making products with technological aspects, are going to take a big hit, and a lot of them are going to go under, and that's going to be devastating for the economy because small businesses, I believe, are accountable for like 40 or 50% of like the US's economic growth, especially where it matters. And we win just on that. Anyway, now let's look at AF's case, and there's just a whole lot of shaky links. And they talk about how Apple and Microsoft do really iffy stuff, but they don't really have a clear link to solvency here. We keep on telling you that this is a problem of marketing, and they're still going to do their malicious actions. And what they keep on telling you is, oh, the batteries are slowing. While the batteries might be slowing, that's not why all the problems they're talking about occur. Like people have iPhones and other things for a long time. It's not the batteries slowing that are making them have to get new ones. It's mostly like 90% the marketing, so they don't have what they're talking about. On e-waste, like Lauren tells you the right answer, that it's not new phones causing the problem. On medicine, this is crucial. We turn what they tell you, that it's going to be dangerous for sick people to have unauthorized people trying to fix their life-saving technologies. And their last one is about small businesses. I just talked about why we have better small business impact. Okay. And then to weighing. First of all, let's talk about probability because they make a big point about probability. And this is, I guess, more of a moral argument, but when we're talking about the intellectual property of these companies, these small companies, these big companies, whatever, when they put in the time, the research into developing new technologies, they should retain the ability to be the ones that know how to fix it. It shouldn't become public information how to fix, and yes, and then if you spend enough time on it, how to repair those. Of course, if you know where every single screw goes and you're able to buy from Apple's computer chip producer, then you're going to be able to make a new phone. Also, it's ridiculous to assume that you wouldn't know how to make the software when you wouldn't have to know about the software when software is in the resolution. There is a 100% probability of this intellectual property and the integrity of it being taken away. But lastly, let's talk about cyber warfare, right? Let's talk about cyber warfare. This is the most important thing, and there's a really clear link, and the only thing they tell you is that like it's too improbable and it's about hardware. The resolution says software. The resolution says complex computer chips. They would have to be able to understand it, and they don't respond to it on any other level. So it is pretty probable that it's going to happen, and it's by far the biggest magnitude. But like Lauren says, if you don't buy that, that magnitude far outweighs the improbability that it won't happen, because war and the loss of US hegemony is a way bigger impact than anything else in the round. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so if everybody can hear me, the order of the speech is going to be clarifying the definitions. So wherever you flowed my definitions at the beginning, that, and then my opponent's case, and then my case, and I'll be weighing all throughout. Gotta get verbal confirmation or just a thumbs up in general? All right, cool, thanks. All right, yeah. Judge is good? Okay, I'm gonna take that as a yes. Awesome. With that in mind, let's start the time now. Judges, if you remember what I said in my first speech and what my partner does a good job clarifying in his speech, when we tell you about what it means to release the information necessary for the repair of products, we say this: establishing clear instructions for the repair of the product for a wide variety of damage scenarios, the tools needed, and the steps required in order to fix it. This is going to be very important in this round because my opponents like to make it seem like once you receive this instruction manual, you can reverse engineer everything. But remember, judges, things like pictures of the interior of a phone, the interior of a car, all these things are available online. We're telling you that all of what we're doing is giving you a scenario in which, let's say, a part of your car breaks, a part of your phone breaks. Here is how you fix it. That is on net good, and it is very easy to understand the logic behind why it is good as well. So with that, let's go to my opponent's case. At the very top, my opponents like to talk about small businesses and intellectual property. In their argument about small businesses, they have a couple of arguments. First, they try to paint this picture that small businesses make their money off of repairs. But no, business models of these companies pivot off of the company's profit on the consumer breaking their product. So we have to consider this. First of all, none of these small businesses make their money strictly off of the repair. So this isn't like some grand thing when we pass this plan. If anything, we have to consider our second argument on this about their second argument about knockoffs. This argument, again, is linked to the narrative that they are painting, which is just wrong. A repair manual does not tell you how to reverse engineer technology. Judges, think about if you got a repair manual for your car or furniture. Does that mean that you can build the car yourself, or you can you can build the furniture yourself? No. Anybody can look up a picture of a car, or they can look up the picture of the furniture, or the interior of it, and see the exact same thing. This just tells you when it breaks what you should do in order for you to fix it. It is very intuitive. Remember, judges, they have not responded to the fact that small businesses do not rely on repair money for the revenue. And also, just looking at this manual is not going to teach you how to reverse engineer. On their cybersecurity argument, judges, here's where it gets really, actually, no, on the intellectual property argument. They've also conceded the fact that intellectual property rights still exist, which means that if somebody comes out with the exact same product as somebody else, they still have the capacity to sue them. It's not like this just goes away in this world. If people just build the exact same product, you can go out there and sue them for what it's worth. So, with that all in mind, our opponents are going to say something along the lines of small businesses don't have the capacity to take down these corporations. But if there's deliberate damage that's proven that they've stolen the design, there have been a number of cases in which small businesses have beaten a number of big corporations because they stole it deliberately. Now, with all that in mind, let's go to the cybersecurity argument or the cyber warfare argument. Our opponents spend maybe 15 to 20 seconds in their MO talking about this, but they call it the most important impact in today's round. Here's the issue. They haven't responded to 4 arguments on this. We tell you that this is a hardware issue, not a software issue. We tell you that the United States has been ramping up its cybersecurity. And also in their last speeches, they have not even given you a clear link as to how us passing the plan about giving people instruction manuals is enough to cause a gigantic cyber war between China, Russia, and the United States. Given the fact that we've proven that this is very low probability and they have not given you a clear way as to how this warfare even breaks out to begin with, you should have a very high threshold in even considering this argument on your ballot today. With that in mind, you know that my opponents have absolutely no arguments. Let's see if there's a reason why you should affirm. They tell you that this is all a marketing issue and that this is not the reason why it happens. But Apple markets their new devices obviously based off of the FTC reports. We tell you that people want to make sure that they have their products for a long amount of time, but Apple deliberately makes it such that people can't have them for a long time. They tell you that repair manuals are really damaging. No, they say that how to remove things safely. They say that, oh, all these things are still going to exist. Like you won't be able to remove your phone battery. The battery's still going to be bad. The problem is if you have a bad battery, you get instructions on how to remove the battery safely. Now you can make sure that your battery lasts longer, your phone lasts longer. You don't have to contribute to the e-waste problem. That means that takes out their argument about e-waste being a marketing problem. There's a huge amount of e-waste. Remember, they make it seem like it's just phones. Look at the resolution. It's about all businesses and all these different things in the modern world. We're going to see a lot of e-waste. E-waste is becoming a huge problem. They also say that consumers want a longer shelf life. We already answered this because if you swap the battery of a phone, you improve the battery life of your phone. This answers this argument about smart fridges. We tell you that we're going to be helping small businesses the most. And now let's get down to the impact calculus. Here's the problem. On our argument about e-waste and medical technology, they make it seem like if you have a small business working on it, it's going to be inherently bad. But the issue with this argument is that in a world where things break for these people, they can't even afford to get it fixed in the real world. That's why you have third-party businesses are even slightly better than the fact when we tell you like Apple and these big medical companies, they charge like $500 for you to fix the smallest thing. So let's move to the weighing. On magnitude, we tell you that e-waste and the medical problems are going to kill a lot of people in this case. Remember, when you expose these things in the sun, what ends up happening is that there are environmental and toxic chemicals that get released into the atmosphere and water and hurt a lot of people. On probability, we tell you that the ability to reverse engineer and any of these sorts of things are not going to happen very likely, but also in general, when we tell you the amount of e-waste that is created, it's very likely to go up, and we've given you clear examples. The time frame is that this change happens instantly. Passing this plan is going to help these consumers, the 44 million people that are in poverty, the 77 million people that are hovering above and below the poverty line. You're going to immediately see all these people get access to all these good things. And for all these reasons, we are very proud to affirm. Thank you.
Good round.
Good round, y'all.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for a good round. If you want to wait till we have the ballots in, we can offer some feedback. At least I can. Michael, are you on board with that?
Yeah, happy to do that. I think whoever is the second judge can go first, because then they'll know that they'll tell you the verdict, so you'll know both ballots are in. I would ask whoever goes first only disclose their ballot. We let each judge disclose their ballot rather than both of them. So we keep people's attention throughout the review.
I'm not sure. Oh, don't. If you are the person who speaks, don't say what the other one is.
Yeah, exactly. You know, the
Got
system will show you it's a 2-0 or a 1-1 or whatever.
Got it.
And once you say that, you tend to lose people's attention.
Agreed.
So just disclose your own ballot.
Wait, out of curiosity, was this round recorded or was that something I made up in my head?
I believe there was someone here recording, and I believe that person is now gone.
Oh, okay.
Looks like the decision's complete, and I was the second ballot in, so I will kick off with my comments if everybody's here. So, well, I guess we still have some debaters missing, at least one. We got 2 electric vehicles. Okay, we got all the debaters here anyway. So I'll kick off. I thought it was a close round. You guys engaged and addressed each other's arguments, and I certainly like to see that. Sometimes I'm in these rounds and I just feel like people are talking past each other, which is not the point of debate. So I was really happy to see the engagement here. I did think it was a close round, and I awarded a low point win, which is not something that I do very often. So I think that is an indication of how close I saw it. So there were a number of lines of argument that I thought were sort of fought to a draw. I'll tell you the ones that I flowed all the way through that I thought were decisive. Negative postulated this required disclosure would compromise the intellectual property of innovators. And there was a lot of back and forth on that, but I felt that AF basically was questioning the degree to which it would occur, but not the actual premise. In the final speech, I thought AF was making some new arguments that could have been subject to a point of order, but weren't. And I disregarded those because they came up in the last argument. Also, I thought that Neg's point that unauthorized repair could be dangerous in some cases, especially in healthcare, was a persuasive point that was not rebutted by the AF. AF said they felt that authorized repair shops should be doing that kind of repairs on healthcare equipment, but there was nothing in the AF plan that would require that. And I think it would actually be contrary to the resolution that AF had to defend. So that point went to Neg as well. Then finally, there was a lot of argument around this concept of the glue versus screws. And on that, Neg said, making the information for repair available does not necessarily mean that the designers of products will make them repairable. So all the harms that AF was postulating as far as environmental impacts of planned obsolescence, that AF's plan would not, or the resolution would not cure for those, didn't have any solvency. So those were the decisions, the factors that I voted on, and I voted for the Neg. Thanks, guys.
Okay, I also agree that it was a very close round. By and large, I also agree that there was a lot of clash, and that's wonderful. But I felt that the opposition did not fully convince me on the reverse engineering cyber warfare point. And additionally, the argument of what was fair and unfair to large corporations, I took into consideration, but I didn't feel that outweighed the demonstrated good to the consumer that was laid out by the government. So it was, for me, this was a split decision. And for me, it was not a low point win, but it was a very close point spread. And I gave it to Gov. So I thought the level of debate was excellent. I really did. And I felt like you were pretty much in command of your time. I felt like your organizational structures were pretty good, and your speaking styles were all very good. So I wish you great luck in the rest of your rounds.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys are very good.
Yes.
Great. Yeah.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Good luck
Thanks,
to
guys.
the tournament.
Thank you.
Thank you for judging.
Thank you.